All right, getting ready for an integrated circuit design engineer interview, huh? That's a big one. We've got all this RoleCatcher stuff, career guides, and like these really specific interview insights. Oh, and even some info on their AI tools. We're going to cut right to the chase, though, straight into what really matters.
What's cool about RoleCatcher is they don't just give you questions, They
Yeah.
actually explain what the interviewer is trying to figure out, like what they're
Yeah.
looking for with each one, and then how you should answer.
It's a roadmap, not just a bunch of random stops along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but before we even get to the questions, RoleCatcher kind of paints this picture of what the job's actually like. You're designing the brains of pretty much everything electronic, right? I mean, we're talking phones to, well, who knows, maybe even spaceships.
That's pretty cool.
Big demand, good money, but you got to constantly be learning. Tech moves so fast.
That's one thing RoleCatcher really stresses. Internships, co-ops, those are gold.
Where would they even do that?
Semiconductor companies, research labs, that kind of thing.
So it's like real-world experience, not just what you learn in class.
Exactly, gotta go beyond the textbooks.
They mentioned university projects, too.
Yeah, those are great for showing off your
You
skills.
need something concrete, right?
Yeah.
Can't just be all talk.
Gotta have proof.
And speaking of proof, how about RoleCatcher's AI? It can actually help you show what you know, but in a way that specific companies will like.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like, imagine a tool that goes through job descriptions, right? But it's not just looking for keywords, it figures out the skills and experiences those hiring managers are actually after.
So no more generic answers. You got to tailor it to what each company values.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Their AI can even help with those application questions, the written ones. It makes sure your answers are top notch.
Oh,
And for those of us who like to practice beforehand, which I'm sure is a lot of people, there's even video analysis.
so it's like having a coach right there with you.
Pretty much, it helps you come across better in the interview.
Okay, we've got a lot to unpack here. Time to get into the interview questions. RoleCatcher gave us a really solid list to work with.
Ready to dive in?
Hit me with it.
All right, first up is a classic. What experience do you have with designing integrated circuits? Seems basic, but there's a smart way to answer.
Don't just list everything on your resume, right?
Right, pick the right stuff. Did you have a crazy class project that really tested you?
Or an internship where you actually solved a real-world problem.
Maybe even a personal project you did just because you love this stuff.
Oh, like building something cool in your garage.
Exactly. This is where you stand out, You're not just a name on a page anymore.
You got to make them see you.
Exactly.
And RoleCatcher's AI can help you figure out what to highlight, right? Make sure it fits the specific job you're after.
For sure. All right, next question is all about your process. How do you approach the design process for an integrated circuit?
Okay, so now they want to know how you actually think, like how you design something.
Exactly. This is where those problem-solving skills come in. Walk them through your steps. You analyze the requirements. Then what? How do you choose the right components? And the simulations.
You got to show them you're organized, right?
Right. And that you have a method. You're not just winging it.
And don't be afraid to get specific here.
Oh, yeah. Talk about the tools you use, the problems you've run into.
How you solve those problems.
The interviewer wants to know if you can handle this job, so.
Show them you can.
Okay. Now, this next one is about working with others, which is a big part of this field. How do you approach collaborating with other engineers and team members during the integrated circuit design process?
The teamwork question. It's not just about saying, I'm a team player.
Right. Got to go deeper than that. Can you communicate clearly? What about when things get tough? Disagreements. Can you handle conflict in a good way?
It's about being a positive force in the team.
Exactly. And again, give them specifics. Tell them about a time you had to deal with a difficult teammate.
Or a time you disagreed on a design decision.
Real world examples. Show them you can navigate the messiness of teamwork sometimes.
Okay, on to question 4. What experience do you have with layout design for integrated circuits? This one's pretty specific. What should people focus on here?
Yeah, definitely get into the nitty-gritty of your layout design experience. Use those examples, just like we talked about. What software do you know? What kind of design problems did you tackle?
Show them your hands-on. You pay attention to the details.
Yeah, layout design is a big deal. It's not just about making it look pretty.
Got to perform well, use power efficiently.
And it actually has to be manufacturable, right? You got to be able to build the thing.
This next one's about making sure things actually work. How do you ensure that your integrated circuit designs are reliable and perform as expected?
Reliability is huge. You mess up an integrated circuit, that can have some serious consequences.
Yeah, like think about what these things go into.
Exactly. They want to know you're taking this seriously.
But how do you test your designs?
What methods do you use, tools you're familiar with, and how do you go above and beyond just the bare minimum?
It's about showing that you care about quality,
Right.
that you're not cutting corners.
Right. You have a whole process.
Oh, and if you've got any experience with like statistical analysis or design for manufacturability, that's gold right here.
That shows you're thinking about the whole picture.
Not just making it
Yeah.
work, but making it work reliably and being able to actually manufacture it.
Okay, on to question number 6, and this one's about staying current. How do you stay up to date with the latest developments and trends in integrated circuit design?
This field changes so fast.
All the time.
So how do you show them you're on top of things?
This is where you show that passion, right? Conferences you go to, publications you read. Are you part of any online communities?
What are some specific technologies that you're excited about? Tell them.
Exactly.
Oh, and if you've got personal projects or research you've done outside of class or work, this is where you bring that up.
That's awesome. It shows you're a go-getter. You're not waiting for someone to tell you what to do. You're going out there and learning on your own.
You're genuinely interested in staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher's AI is really helpful here too, because it can tell you what's hot in the specific job you're applying for.
So if their job description mentions a new technology, boom, you can talk about how you've already been learning about that.
It's like you've done your homework. Shows them you're genuinely interested in their company and what they do.
Smart. Now, before we move on, we got to talk about the CV.
Oh, yeah, see.
That's often your first impression, so it's got to be good. How can RoleCatcher's AI help with that?
Imagine a tool that not only looks for keywords, but actually figures out which skills and experiences are most important to employers in this field. That's what we're talking about.
So it can help you tailor your CV to what really matters.
Right.
That's incredibly helpful. This field is so competitive, your CV needs to stand out.
Exactly. And it's not just about keywords, it's about the context, the bigger picture.
So it's not just throwing in buzzwords, it's about telling your story in a way that makes sense.
That's a good way to put it. It helps you create a narrative, one that highlights your strengths and what you've accomplished.
It's like having your own personal CV expert who knows exactly what companies are looking for.
Exactly. All right, we've covered a lot,
Yeah, we have.
but we still have more interview questions. Ready for round 2?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Okay, let's get back to those questions.
Where'd we leave off?
We were talking about staying up to date, keeping those skills sharp. But now we're going to dive into some more, I guess you could say, specialized stuff. Question 7 from RoleCatcher is, what experience do you have with designing power management circuits for integrated circuits? This is where you really get to show off what you know about, a really important part of modern electronics.
It's not just about making it work anymore. It's got to be efficient, too.
Yeah. Exactly. Think about all the mobile devices. Everything's connected these days, right? The Internet of Things. Power management is a huge deal in IC design.
Huge.
So if you've got experience here, really go for it. Tell them about projects where you had to design for low power, maybe even mention specific techniques like voltage scaling or clock gating.
Okay, hold on. For those of us who aren't like electrical engineers, can you explain what those actually do?
Sure. Imagine a circuit that's only needed for a little bit, right? Instead of having it on all the time, clock gating basically shuts off the clock signal to that part when it's not in use, saves energy.
Okay.
And voltage scaling is kind of like dimming the lights. You lower the voltage when it doesn't need to be running full blast. Those are just a couple examples, but it gives you an idea of what they're looking for.
So it's not just about knowing the fancy words. You got to say to how it actually works, how to use them in like real life designs.
Exactly. And question 8 kind of takes that even further. How do you optimize integrated circuit designs for low power consumption? Now we're getting into the really technical stuff.
This is where they call design methodologies, those come into play.
Exactly. This is where you really shine. Talk about your approach, mention specific techniques you've used, like dynamic voltage and frequency scaling, power gating.
These are all things our listeners are familiar with, right?
Hopefully. Or even things like using multiple voltage domains within a chip. This is your chance to show off, how much you know about power optimization.
Don't be afraid to get into the details here.
Yeah, if you've done any research or you know about some cool new low-power design tools, tell them.
It shows you're not just following the crowd, you're pushing things forward.
You're on the cutting edge.
Okay, question 9 gets into another specialized area. What experience do you have with designing mixed signal integrated circuits? Things are getting interesting now.
For sure.
Could you explain, for folks who might not know, what is a mixed signal circuit anyway?
So most electronics these days, they're going to handle both analog signals, like sound or temperature, and digital signals, the ones and zeros that computers use. A mixed signal circuit puts both of those together on the same chip.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, think about your smartphone. It's got sensors, microphones, touch screens, all that stuff. They create analog signals, but then those got to be converted to digital so the processor can understand them.
Right, right.
That's where mixed signal design comes in. It's a tricky field, but it's really rewarding. And if you've got experience here, this is your moment.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Talk about projects where you designed, simulated, tested these kinds of circuits. What were the tough parts? Like noise reduction, signal integrity. How did you handle those?
So it's not just saying, oh, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
It's about showing them how you did it.
Exactly. Now, question 10 brings us back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that your integrated circuit designs meet all regulatory and compliance requirements? Might not sound exciting, but it's super important.
It's got to be safe.
You can have the most amazing design, but if it doesn't meet those safety standards, it's no good.
Totally.
And different industries have different rules, right? Medical devices are way stricter than like consumer electronics. So you got to do your research on the company, figure out what rules apply to their products.
So it's not just about knowing the rules in general. It's knowing the rules for that specific company, for that specific job.
Exactly. And you got to show them you have a system, a process to make sure you're following those rules every step of the way.
Like, how do you do your design reviews? What about testing? Documentation?
It all matters.
It's about being a responsible engineer. Not just someone who designs cool stuff, but someone who understands the bigger picture, the impact of their work.
Exactly. That's what makes you stand out. Now, we've talked about a lot of questions, but remember, these are just examples. The interviewer might ask things a little differently or go deeper into certain areas.
Yeah, you got to be ready for anything.
It depends on your experience, the specific role you're going for, all that.
So don't just memorize answers. You got to understand the concepts so you can adapt,
That's where RoleCatcher's AI can really help. It can help you figure out what other questions they might ask and how to answer them even better.
Practice makes perfect.
Right. It even has video practice, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Speaking of RoleCatcher's AI, we talked about the CV, but what about those tricky application questions they throw at you sometimes?
You mean the ones where they ask you to describe a time you failed? Or how you handle conflict?
Yeah, those behavioral questions, they can be tough.
They can be. But RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze your answers and give you feedback. It can tell you if you're being too vague or if you're not emphasizing the right skills.
It's like having a coach, but for your writing.
Exactly. And it helps you write answers that fit the company's values, their culture. It's pretty amazing.
So it's not just about giving the right answer. It's about giving the answer that fits that company.
Right. And if you're someone who gets nervous about interviews, RoleCatcher even has these AI-powered video tools. They can analyze your body language, how you sound, your whole delivery.
Like a personal stylist for your interview?
Pretty much. It helps you come across as confident and polished.
Wow, RoleCatcher has really thought of everything.
They really have. But don't forget, tech is great, but it's still up to you to show them who you are.
Right, your passion, your skills, all that.
It's what makes you unique.
Okay, I think we need a little break to process all this.
Yeah, a deep breath.
We'll be back for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts and advice to help you rock that interview. Okay, we're back. Final stretch of our deep dive on how to totally ace that integrated circuit design engineer interview. We've gone through a ton, all those technical questions, how RoleCatcher's AI can help you prep. But before we wrap up, I gotta ask, big picture, what really makes someone stand out in these interviews?
You can have all the skills, the perfect answers, but what really shines through is passion,
You gotta love this stuff.
This field is all about pushing boundaries, right? Inventing the future. So they want to see that spark in you, that you're not just here for a job, but that you actually want to make a difference.
It's about making an impact.
Exactly. So when you're talking about your projects, let that excitement show. Tell them what challenges got you fired up, what solutions you're proud of, what tech gets you really excited.
Yeah, you can tell when someone's genuinely into something.
It's contagious, that energy. And it makes you memorable, trust me.
It's like, think about reading a textbook versus talking to someone who's super passionate about that topic.
Yeah.
One's just information, the other That's inspiration.
Exactly. And remember, an interview is a two-way street, right? It's not just them grilling you.
You got to ask questions, too.
Absolutely. Don't just sit there, show them you're curious, that you're really thinking about whether this is the right fit for you.
What kind of questions should they ask?
Ask about the company culture, their approach to innovation, what specific projects you'd be working on.
So they know you're not just looking for any job.
Right. You want the right opportunity, the one where you can learn and grow and, really use your skills.
And to help you figure out what to ask, RoleCatcher's career guides are really useful. They give you all this insight into different company cultures, industry trends, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are great. And take some time to research the company on your own, too. Their website, their projects, who are the leaders.
It's like doing your homework before a big test.
The more you know, the more confident you'll be, and it shows them you're serious about this.
Makes sense. All right, so to sum it all up for our listeners, you've got the skills, you've used RoleCatcher to get your application and your answers ready, and now it's about showing up as your best self.
Be confident, be enthusiastic.
And be ready to talk about what you love about this field.
Yeah, because that's what really sets you apart, that passion. It'll help you land that dream job.
Absolutely. Any last words of wisdom?
As you go into this, think about the impact you want to make, What do you want to bring to integrated circuit design?
The future is in your hands. Literally.
This has been awesome. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We know you're going to crush that interview.